Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're embarking on what I honestly consider to be one of the most profound historical and spiritual mysteries out there. We are going to cross some massive, massive chasms of time and geography. We'll be traveling all the way from the freezing, breathtaking, stone-carved peaks of the Andes Mountains over to the scorching, constantly shifting sands of the Saharan Desert, and then finally landing in the incredibly fertile, vibrant river valleys of ancient India. Now, in these vastly different environments, we're going to examine three incredibly powerful deities, Surya, Inti, and Ra. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this because comparing these distinct cultures really represents one of the most fascinating intersections of mythology, astronomy, and human consciousness that we can possibly explore. We're looking at a central axis of human history here, a time where separated civilizations looked up at the exact same sky and saw the exact same radiant force shaping their entire destiny.
So let's just dive right into this massive question, one that historians and anthropologists have literally been analyzing for centuries. Why did these ancient civilizations, cultures separated by enormous, totally insurmountable distances, vast oceans, and completely different ecological realities, why did each of them view the sun not merely as a physical object, just a fiery rock floating out in the void, but as a conscious, divine power? Because this wasn't just some basic, primitive worship of light. Across the board, these isolated cultures independently linked the sun to the divine right of kingship, the dawn of creation itself, the strict regulation of time, human health, the necessity of sacred sacrifice, and the very foundation of cosmic order. The real mystery lies in how they came to such strikingly identical philosophical conclusions without ever communicating with one another. There was no internet, no shared textbooks, right? Yet they arrived at the exact same place.
Three distinct ancient civilizations, three entirely different continents, yet they all share this astonishing, just overwhelming reverence for one radiant cosmic power. They built their sprawling societies, their highly complex agricultural calendars, and their deepest spiritual truths entirely around the daily journey of the sun. But as we're going to see when we analyze the source texts and historical records, they didn't just share a generic appreciation for daylight. No, they shared incredibly specific, intricate understandings of what this cosmic power actually represented. Today, we're going to compare their sacred animals, their highly organized priesthoods, their specific solar calendars, their grand temples, and their profound ideas about death and rebirth. We're also going to look closely at the distinct cosmic vehicles they believed the sun traveled in.
Section 1. Ra, defeating the darkness.
Okay, so our first character study takes us straight to the banks of the Nile in ancient Egypt, where we meet Ra. Ra is the ultimate solar creator god, the self-created one, who, according to tradition, stood on the primordial mound amidst these swirling waters of chaos to literally bring the universe into existence. But Ra's identity was deeply complex and super tied to the physical world, actually taking on different forms throughout the day. So at dawn, he was associated with the sacred scarab beetle, Khepri. Why a beetle? Well, just as the beetle rolls its little sphere of life across the desert sand, Khepri rolls the sun over the horizon. Then at noon he was Ra Harakati, soaring at his absolute highest peak, and often depicted with the head of a magnificent sacred falcon. By sunset, though, he transformed into Atum, the weary, aging ram preparing to die. And the massive, incredibly wealthy priesthood of Heliopolis actually dedicated their entire lives to tracking these transformations, performing intricate rituals just to sustain Ra's energy as he passed through the hours of the day.
The cycle of Ra is essentially this incredibly cinematic journey of death and rebirth that happens every single day. First, Ra sails the daytime sky in this magnificent solar boat called the Bark of Millions of Years. Second, as the sun sets, he literally dies and enters the Duat. That's the dangerous Egyptian underworld. Third, he is violently attacked in the darkness by a giant, chaotic serpent named Apophis. Now, Apophis has one sole goal: to swallow the sun and plunge the earth into eternal nothingness. And this nightly battle? It was the absolute core of Egyptian anxiety. They believed if Ra lost, reality itself would unspool. But finally, step 4. Ra defeats Apophis with the help of other deities and the justified dead, and rises victorious to restore creation at dawn. This cycle heavily informed the whole Egyptian view of human mortality. Death wasn't the end, but a necessary journey through the dark, with the ultimate hope that a righteous soul would actually join Ra on his bark and participate in this eternal cycle of cosmic rebirth.
And this wasn't some distant, unfeeling god.
The ancient texts highlight a deeply personal, really emotional connection. Just consider this moving passage from Egyptian mythology. Humankind happened out of the tears of his eyes. The creation traditions tell us that when Ra's children returned to him after being lost in the dark primordial waters, he was so overwhelmed with gratitude and love that he wept, and those divine tears literally fell to the earth and transformed into human beings. Think about that for a second. The ancient Egyptians felt a profound familial bond with the sun. They weren't just mortal subjects living under his rule, they were his beloved creations, literally born from his joy.
Section 2. Surya, the all-seeing witness.
Now let's shift our focus completely across the globe to the vibrant spiritual landscape of Vedic India, where we encounter Surya. While Ra's primary battle was against physical chaos and serpentine monsters, Surya's battle is intensely internal and spiritual. He is the divine force that dispels the darkness of human ignorance. In classical depictions, you'll often see Surya shown holding 2 lotus flowers, which are beautiful symbols of spiritual awakening and purity unfolding in the light of dawn. He was worshipped by ancient Brahmin priesthoods who performed daily fire sacrifices, known as yajna, and these were meticulously timed to the sunrise. These rituals, like the Sanya Vandanam performed while facing the eastern dawn, were meant to honor Surya not just as the governor of time and the seasons, but as the Pratyaksha Devata, the directly perceivable deity, basically a tangible manifestation of the divine that humanity could interact with physically every single day.
Reading directly from the source material, the Rig Veda, which, by the way, is one of the oldest religious texts in human history, dating back thousands of years, we find this spectacular poetic reverence. It says, "7 bay steeds harnessed to thy car, bear thee, O thou far-seeing one, God, Surya, with the radiant hair." The radiant hair here naturally evokes the life-giving, purifying rays of the sun extending into every little corner of existence. But the absolutely crucial title here is the far-seeing one. Surya was revered as the ultimate eye of heaven. Because his light touches everything, literally nothing can be hidden from him. He acts as this silent, ever-present witness to all of humanity's actions, observing the unfolding of human karma with a totally impartial, all-knowing gaze.
Now Surya crosses the sky in a magnificent chariot driven by his charioteer Aruna, who is the personification of the reddish glow of dawn. And this movement across the heavens represents so much more than just a method of transportation or the mere passage of days. Metaphorically, it represents the swift, all-penetrating presence of divine consciousness moving through the universe. See, in the Vedic tradition, light is the ultimate metaphor for truth and vital energy. So, when Surya's chariot races across the sky, it is absolute truth illuminating the material world, driving away the confusion, the fear, and the spiritual lethargy that take hold during the night. It offers this incredible daily opportunity for human vitality and spiritual renewal.
Section 3. Inti, the divine ancestor.
Okay, from the river valleys of India, we are now going to travel high up into the rugged, freezing altitudes of the Andes Mountains in South America to meet Inti. He is the supreme deity of the mighty Incan Empire. Now, in a mountainous environment where night brings bitter, literally life-threatening cold, the sun's warmth was quite literally a matter of survival. This made Inti the absolute central protector of agriculture and fertility. But more than that, Inti was fundamentally the political and ceremonial backbone of the entire Inca civilization. He was served by this massive, highly organized religious hierarchy led by the Vilak Umu, the high priest of the sun. This was all supported by the Aklas, the chosen virgins of the sun who spent their entire lives brewing sacred chicha beer and weaving these magnificent textiles specifically for solar rituals. Inti's integration into Inca society was absolute. It was completely all-encompassing. The Inca emperors, known as the Sapa Inca, actually justified their absolute rule by claiming direct, literal bloodline descent from Inti. The sun was frequently represented abstractly as this massive, radiant, golden solar disk with a human face, and worship was centralized at the astonishing Coricancha temple in Cusco. Get this, the walls were covered floor to ceiling in panels of solid, beaten gold. It reflected the sunlight so brilliantly it was literally blinding. The Inca civilization operated on a strict solar calendar, which all culminated in the monumental Inti Raymi festival. During the winter solstice, when the sun was at its farthest and weakest point, tens of thousands of people would gather in freezing darkness in Cusco.
They would wait in terrified anticipation for the dawn, offering grand llama sacrifices the very second Inti's rays finally crested the mountains, basically begging their divine ancestor to return and save them from eternal winter.
Section 4. Encoded Science, Astronomy and Healing.
When we place these cultural images side by side, a really fascinating pattern emerges regarding how humanity conceptualized the sun's journey. For the river-dependent Egyptians, whose entire world revolved around the Nile, well, naturally the sun travels in a boat, a solar bark navigating cosmic waters. For the highly mobile, horse-rearing Vedic civilization, it's a magnificent 7-horse chariot thundering across the sky. And for the mountain-dwelling Incas, deeply tied to the stone and precious metals of the earth, it's a golden disk, physically anchored to their towering architecture. Each of these civilizations contextualize the exact same astronomical reality, the solar transit, but they did it using the specific technological, environmental, and linguistic framework of their own distinct world.
And this brings us to a really specific detail found within the Vedic tradition that bridges the gap between mythology and observation. That detail is the number 7, specifically the 7 horses pulling Surya's chariot. Why exactly 7?
The science of 7 in the Vedas is just an incredibly compelling area of study. The 7 horses are widely interpreted as representing the 7 days of the week, sure, but on a deeper level, they encode the multifaceted nature of solar energy. Long before modern optical physics used a prism to demonstrate that white light is actually composed of the 7 colors of the visible light spectrum, ancient Vedic traditions were conceptualizing the sun's singular unified light as being driven by 7 distinct components. Now, while we definitely must distinguish established ancient tradition from modern speculation, this represents a profound intuitive alignment. It is just a breathtaking instance where ancient spiritual metaphor beautifully, and maybe entirely accidentally, anticipates the empirical reality of the visible spectrum.
And the scientific parallels continue deeply into the realm of medicine too. Ancient Vedic texts, specifically within the Atharva Veda, contain these very specific focused hymns praising the sun's golden rays for curing a disease they called harima. That translates directly to the yellow hue of jaundice. They viewed the sun as a supreme cosmic physician, possessing the literal physical power to draw out the disease from a sick human body using nothing but focused light.
It's honestly incredible to see how these ancient traditions map onto established modern scientific principles. The Vedic tradition of Surya dispelling jaundice aligns perfectly with modern clinical phototherapy. Hospitals today literally use specific wavelengths of blue and white light to break down excess bilirubin in jaundice newborns. It's the same concept. Similarly, when we look back at the Inca, they constructed the Intihuatana, these massive carved stone hitching posts of the sun, found at sites like Machu Picchu. While they were definitely rooted in deep religious tradition, modern science recognizes these structures as incredibly advanced, highly precise astronomical observatories. They were used for strict solstice tracking and agricultural planning. The line between sacred ritual and advanced science in the ancient world is thrillingly thin.
Section 5. The Inner Light, a universal symbol.
All of this brings us to the ultimate question surrounding these ancient deities. Do these striking parallels, the sun as a conscious creator, an impartial judge, a cosmic healer, and the divine ancestor of kings, do they arise naturally simply through convergent evolution, just because every human civilization fundamentally depends on the sun for survival? Or do they reflect what the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung called universal archetypes, symbolic structures of meaning embedded deep within the collective human unconscious? Is it even possible that they preserve fragments of an ancient, forgotten, shared understanding of the cosmos, handed down from a time long before these cultures diverged? It really deeply challenges us to rethink the complexity and the interconnectedness of the ancient mind.
Ultimately, whether we're reading about the epic night battles of Ra, the spiritual witnessing of Surya, or the literal life-saving warmth of Inti, the philosophical takeaway here is profound. Across the board, the sun was universally viewed as the visible expression of an invisible intelligence. It's the unblinking eye of heaven. It is the steady regulator of time and cycles. And above all, it is the fierce, triumphant force that guarantees us that no matter how terrifying the night gets or how chaotic the darkness of the underworld may seem, the light will return to defeat the darkness every single morning, without fail.
Perhaps Surya, Ra, and Inti were never merely gods placed in the sky to just be worshipped from afar. Perhaps they represented humanity's profound recognition that just as all physical, biological life depends on a single radiant power above us,
The outer sun may actually symbolize an inner light, an inner consciousness waiting to be awakened within all of us. If you want to continue exploring the deep mysteries connecting humanity's oldest traditions, forgotten civilizations, and the evolution of human consciousness, please make sure to subscribe to The Spiritual Radical for more journeys into ancient wisdom. Thank you so much for taking this profound journey with me today. See you next time.